Have you ever stopped and wondered what a brand is actually worth? I'm not talking about just cool logos or a catchy jingle, but, real hard dollars and cents. It feels so abstract, right? But there's a real science behind it. So let's dive in and really unpack that journey of how a simple idea can become a seriously powerful financial asset.
But first, let's start with a question that I guarantee we have all faced. You're standing in an aisle, looking at two products that are pretty much identical. One's the generic, and the other has that familiar name on it, but it costs more. So why do we so often reach for the more expensive one? What is that name really giving us?
I mean, take a simple can of cola. The store brand might be, say, $1, while the Coca-Cola sitting right next to it is $2.50. The ingredients, basically the same. But that brand name, that logo, it creates what's called a price premium. And this isn't just in our heads. It's a real, tangible financial difference, and it's the finish line of a very long and very deliberate process.
To really get our heads around that process, we're going to need a map. And for us, that map is something called the brand value chain. It's an incredibly powerful framework that gives us a clear, step-by-step guide to see exactly how a company's marketing efforts are supposed to turn into real financial value.
So this whole journey gets broken down into 4 distinct stages. It all kicks off with marketing investment. The ads, the social media campaigns, the whole shebang. The goal of all that spending is to shift the customer mindset. That's how we think and feel about the brand. If that works, it should lead to better market performance. We're talking more sales. And finally, all that good performance boosts shareholder value, which is the company's stock price. See, it's a clear path from a commercial all the way to Wall Street.
But, and this is a big but, this flow from one stage to the next isn't guaranteed. There are these things called multipliers that can either boost the value or just stop it dead in its tracks. I mean, think about it. You could have the most brilliant ad campaign in the world, but it won't matter if your biggest competitor suddenly slashes their prices. Or maybe everyone loves your brand, but they can't buy it because it's out of stock. These multipliers are the messy, real-world variables in the whole equation.
Okay, so let's zoom in on that second stage, the customer mindset. A company can spend millions, even billions on marketing, but how in the world do they know if it's actually changing anything inside our heads? Well, they have to listen, and the tools they use to do that are pretty fascinating.
One of the simplest but also most powerful ways they do this is a technique called free association. Researchers will literally just ask someone, what comes to mind when you think of Nike? And the answers, whether it's running or just do it, innovation, maybe even expensive, all of that helps them build a sort of mental map of what the brand actually means to people. It's like a direct peek inside the consumer's brain.
And what they're measuring isn't just one thing. It breaks down into 5 key areas. First, there's awareness. Do you even know the brand exists? Then, associations. What ideas or images do you connect with it? Attitudes. Is your gut feeling about it positive or negative? Attachment. How loyal are you really? And finally, activity. Are you actually buying it, using it, and talking about it to your friends?
Now, to get at the really deep stuff, the feelings that are sometimes unconscious, researchers use these clever things called projective techniques. They might ask a wild question like this one. If Apple were an animal, what would it be? The answers, maybe a sleek panther or a wise owl, and especially the reasons why, can reveal these incredibly powerful ideas about a brand's personality that people might not ever say out loud directly.
So, you've got all these positive thoughts and feelings swirling around in people's heads. How does that get converted into cold, hard cash? Well, that brings us to stage 3, market performance. This is where the intangible stuff starts to become very, very tangible. It's where feelings connect directly to the financials. And here is the most direct measure of all, that price premium we talked about. A strong brand can just flat out charge more. This number here, for example, could be an extra $45 that customers are happy to pay for a branded jacket over a generic one. That difference, that is pure profit generated entirely by the power of the brand.
Another huge metric is, of course, market share. As you can see in a chart like this, a really successful campaign that shifts how customers think can directly lead to grabbing a bigger slice of the market pie. People aren't just thinking nice thoughts anymore. They are actively choosing to buy your product, and that is what drives sales and growth.
So to get this whole big picture, companies will do something called a brand audit. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a comprehensive health checkup for the brand. It combines all of these different techniques, both the touchy-feely stuff and the hard numbers, to understand what people think and how that's actually playing out in the real world.
But what happens when all those numbers from the audit don't tell the whole story? Because relying only on the numbers can be incredibly dangerous.
Sometimes the most important insights aren't quantifiable at all, which brings us to a really critical cautionary tale about the difference between big data and something called thick data.
Okay, picture this. It's 2009, and Nokia is an absolute giant. They sent an ethnographer named Trisha Wang to China to study low-income consumers. She spends time with people in their lives and discovers they are desperate to get smartphones, so desperate they'd spend half their income. She reports this back to Nokia headquarters, but her findings, her human stories, were totally dismissed because they didn't match their big data spreadsheets. And, well, we all know what happened next. Nokia completely missed the rise of the smartphone and collapsed, all because they ignored the human story behind the numbers.
And Trisha Wang's experience gives us this powerful way of thinking about it. Thick data is all about the why. It's the context, the emotion, the stories that big data, with its billions of data points, just cannot capture. It's about understanding actual human beings, not just rows in a spreadsheet.
So let's just boil it down. It's actually pretty simple. Big data gives you scale. It tells you what millions of people are doing. Thick data gives you depth. It explains why they're doing it by digging deep with a smaller group of people. The smartest companies out there, they know you absolutely need both to survive.
And the method behind getting all that rich, thick data is called ethnography. It's where researchers literally immerse themselves in people's real lives. They're in their homes, they're shopping with them to see what they actually do, not just what they say they do on a survey. This is how you close that famous say-do gap and find out what people truly need.
All right, so we've gone on quite a journey, all the way from a marketing budget to a company's stock price, with a really crucial detour into the world of human insight. So let's bring it all home and talk about the final takeaway.
At the end of the day, creating brand value is a structured journey. You really do need to follow that chain of value, from the initial investment to the customer's mindset to how it all plays out in the market. But it is not just a numbers game. To truly win, you have to pair the quantitative what with the deep, human, qualitative why.
Which leaves us with one last question for you to think about. The next time you choose to pay a little extra for a brand, ask yourself, what's the story this brand is telling me? What feeling or identity or promise am I actually paying for? Because behind every great brand isn't just a product, it's a powerful story that you've chosen to buy into.